Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we are going to be delving into a fascinating world, and that is the world of autism and sleep.
That's a big one.
And we have a really interesting piece of source material that you sent us to unpack. It is a personal essay titled "Autism and Sleep" from a blog
It's
called
the outside.
The Outside. Yeah. Anyway,
Really interesting blog, by the way.
what's particularly unique about this piece is that it comes from Jaime Hoerricks,
Who is both autistic
who is both
and a
autistic
parent to autistic children.
and a parent to autistic children.
This is a very first-hand account.
Exactly. So we're not just talking about research here, but we're talking about like lived experience.
Right. It's not theoretical. It's actually
Very practical. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this deep dive so compelling. We're not just looking at like statistics or
Right.
clinical studies.
This is someone who's actually lived it and figured some things out.
Right. Exactly. And what they discover is
Pretty surprising, I think.
very, very surprising.
Yeah.
So Jaime, after struggling with sleep issues for like their entire life and trying like countless,
Yeah.
conventional treatments,
Mm-hmm.
found a solution in like the most unexpected place.
Yeah, in an unexpected place.
And that was a connection between their diet
Histine intolerance
and sleep quality.
and sleep quality. Okay, I am already
hooked. Yeah.
So let's start with the problem.
Okay.
The essay mentions Jaime experiencing severe sleep disturbances, particularly night terrors.
Mm-hmm.
How common are these sorts of sleep problems in autistic individuals?
Well, they're unfortunately very common.
Yeah.
The essay cites a study from China that found sleep disorders in something like 67.4% of autistic children,
Wow.
compared to 51% in typically developing children.
So that's a huge
Discrepancy.
figure. Yeah.
But the frustrating part for many, including Jaime, is the lack of clarity around why this is the case.
Totally.
You're told what the problem is,
Yeah.
but not why it's happening, which makes it so hard to find like effective solutions.
Right.
And, that lack of understanding, it just has this ripple effect, right?
Absolutely.
It impacts so much more than just sleep.
Yeah. Jaime talks about being mislabeled as a bad kid because of behaviors that were directly stemming from sleep deprivation.
Wow.
Just imagine being a child who is constantly exhausted,
Yeah.
struggling to regulate your emotions, but everyone just thinks you're misbehavior.
And it's nobody's fault, right? It's just a
Right.
lack of
Yeah, just a lack of understanding.
Yeah. It's so heartbreaking.
It is.
And this sort of highlights a larger issue we see in autism, right?
Mm-hmm.
This tendency to just focus on those surface level behaviors, without addressing the underlying sensory or biological factors that are probably contributing to them.
Yeah, the root cause, yeah.
So Jaime went through years of trying to manage these sleep issues
Yeah.
through conventional medical approaches, including medication. But it sounds like those attempts were
Unsuccessful and maybe even made things worse.
and not just unsuccessful, but really detrimental to their health.
Yeah.
They talk about experiencing significant side effects from the medications.
Right, like weight gain.
Weight gain, even feeling less happy overall.
Wow.
And the medications also interfered with Jaime's ability to work, leading to this situation where they were actually exploited by an employer who took advantage of their ability to function on minimal sleep.
Right.
So this is a really, really important point.
It is.
One that I think we need to unpack a little bit further.
Yeah.
We often put so much faith in the medical system
Right.
to provide solutions. But Simon's experience shows that those solutions aren't always beneficial, and sometimes they can even be harmful.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is a good reminder for us all to be critical and to advocate for ourselves,
Right.
even within a medical setting.
Yes, definitely question everything.
Question everything.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Sammy's journey didn't stop with medication.
No.
They also explored a variety of popular diets, right?
They did. They tried going vegan, vegetarian, even gluten-free.
All based on recommendations from doctors.
Doctors, yeah.
But again, it seems like the focus was always on weight management
Right.
rather than addressing the root cause
Yeah, this pesky GI problem.
of those GI problems. So this brings us to the turning point in Jaime's story.
The turning point.
And that is finding a clinical nutritionist who
Took a different approach.
a very different approach.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really interesting. This nutritionist viewed the autistic system as designed. not disordered.
I like that.
So instead of trying to fix something, they aimed to understand how Jaime's system worked differently and support it accordingly.
Wow, that's refreshing, isn't it?
I love this.
Yeah.
How common is that approach among healthcare professionals, especially those that specialize in autism?
Well, I wouldn't say it's the dominant approach, unfortunately.
Right.
I think there's still a lot of emphasis on trying to fit autistic individuals into a neurotypical mold.
Right.
But there is a growing movement towards recognizing neurodiversity and embracing the unique ways that artistic brains are wired.
Yeah, that's so important. So it sounds like Jaime really benefited from finding a healthcare provider who aligned with that perspective.
They did.
So what happened next?
Well, after some testing, the nutritionist diagnosed Jaime with histamine intolerance, which was a key piece of the puzzle.
Okay, histamine intolerance.
Histamine intolerance.
Now, I have to admit, I'm not, super familiar with this.
Okay.
Can you break that down for us? What is it, and how does it connect to sleep?
Okay. So histamine is a chemical that's naturally found in our bodies.
Yeah.
And it plays a role in various functions, like our immune response, digestion.
Okay.
But in some people, their bodies actually struggle to break down histamine properly.
So is it sort of like
leading to a buildup?
a buildup,
that can
like a
cause...
traffic jam of histamine with nowhere to go?
Yes,
That's
exactly.
it.
And the symptoms of this excess histamine can vary widely.
Yeah.
But, you can have headaches, you can have skin rashes, gastrointestinal problems, even anxiety.
So this all starts to make sense now when we think about Jaime struggling with GI issues and anxiety.
Exactly. It's all connected.
It's all interconnected, yeah. So you're dealing with, constant digestive discomfort,
Right.
maybe some skin irritations
Yeah.
and anxiety on top of it.
That's not a good recipe for sleep.
It's no wonder sleep becomes a struggle. So it's this vicious cycle, right?
A vicious cycle.
The histamine intolerance is contributing to anxiety and GI problems, which in turn make it nearly impossible to sleep.
Yeah, very hard to get good quality sleep when all that's going on.
Right. So this is really highlighting how interconnected our systems are.
Right.
And how sometimes the solution to one problem lies in addressing these seemingly unrelated issues.
Absolutely.
So how did the nutritionist address Jaime's histamine intolerance?
Well, the solution involved a pretty radical shift in diet.
Okay.
It was a high-fat, low-carb diet consisting primarily of saturated animal fats.
Whoa, hold on a second. That goes against practically everything.
Yeah, right.
We're told about healthy eating these days.
Right.
I'm assuming there's a very specific rationale behind this approach.
There is.
So walk us through it.
Okay, so remember the nutritionist was looking at Jaime's system as unique, not trying to fit them into a conventional mold.
Right.
So this diet was designed to minimize histamine intake
Okay.
while also supporting their gut health and reducing inflammation.
Okay, so tell me more about this. What did this diet actually look like?
Okay, well, think lots of butter, coconut oil, cheese, chicken, nuts, and very limited carbohydrates.
Okay.
And no sugar.
No sugar.
At all.
Wow.
Another key component was the timing of
Yeah.
when they ate.
So it was a form of intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting.
Yeah. Oh, intermittent fasting. We could do a whole other deep dive on that. But in this case, what was the reasoning behind incorporating that into Jaime's dietary plan?
Well, the idea was to avoid large energy spikes throughout the day that can disrupt sleep cycles by keeping things stable and giving the body time to wind down.
Okay.
Before bed, the aim was to promote better quality sleep.
So it's sort of like
kind of evening everything out.
Evening everything out, yeah. So did it work?
It did.
What was the impact on Jaime's health?
The results were significant.
Wow.
Their GI tract started to heal, their hormone production improved.
Wow.
And their weight stabilized.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But there's one more element to this story which I think you'll find particularly interesting.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Alongside the diet and the intermittent fasting, Jaime started exploring something called liminal dreaming.
Liminal dreaming.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of science fiction-y, right?
Yeah, it does. It's very sci-fi.
Yeah.
So what is that and how does that tie into this whole sleep journey?
Okay, well, the word liminal refers to a threshold or a transitional space between two states.
Okay.
So liminal dreaming is about intentionally accessing those moments when we're kind of hovering between wakefulness and sleep. Those kind of hazy, dreamlike states where our minds can wander freely.
So when you're drifting off to sleep and you start to see images or have thoughts that feel almost like dreams.
Right, or when you first wake up and you're not quite sure if you were dreaming or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those moments. I love those moments.
Me too. So these liminal states, then, are often associated with like heightened creativity, intuition, and even access to subconscious rights and feelings.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm starting to understand, but how can liminal dreaming be used therapeutically?
Well, Jaime actually, it seems, learned to consciously navigate these liminal states, drawing inspiration from experts in the field, like Jason Louv and P.D. Newman, and they utilize techniques like visualization and dream journaling to process and possibly transform their fears.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not just about passively experiencing these dreamlike states.
Right.
But it's about actively engaging with them.
Yes, very much
as a tool for, like, personal growth.
Yeah, exactly.
And while Jaime's night terrors haven't completely disappeared,
right.
this approach, coupled with the dietary changes, led to significant improvement in their sleep quality.
Yeah, it seems like a really good combination for them.
It's fascinating, but I'm also wondering about the practical side of things. You know, this diet sounds incredibly restrictive.
Yeah.
How did Jaime navigate the social challenges that come with such a, like, limited way of eating?
Yeah.
Especially in a world where food is so often at the center of social gatherings.
It is tough.
It's really tough.
But instead of viewing it as a burden, they decided to use these situations as opportunities to educate others about their choices.
Ooh, that's a good approach. So turning a potential, like, point of friction into a moment of, like, connection and learning.
Exactly.
And instead of feeling isolated, they found a way to connect with others and maybe even, like, challenge some conventional thinking around, like, diet and health.
That's right, yeah.
It's really inspiring, actually.
It is.
It's amazing how one person's journey can have such a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
You know, impacting not only their own life, but the lives of those around them as well. So overall, it sounds like this lifestyle shift has had a profoundly positive impact on Jaime's life.
It seems so, yeah.
And they mentioned some, like, unexpected benefits.
Like what?
Well, they talk about saving money on clothes.
Oh, okay.
Due to their weight stabilizing.
Interesting.
And not needing to buy new sizes as often. They even attribute their youthful appearance to the higher cholesterol and fat intake.
That's really interesting. So those seemingly superficial benefits can tie back to a deeper sense of well-being and self-acceptance.
Exactly. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So before we move on, I just want to make sure that we are, like, distilling some key takeaways for our listener.
Yeah.
What are some of the, like, most important things we've learned so far from Jaime's experience?
Well, one of the most important takeaways is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to health.
Especially when it comes to autism.
Especially when it comes to autism.
Yeah.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Right.
And it's a process of trial and error to find what truly supports your needs.
And that's so important to remember.
It is.
When we're constantly being bombarded with messages about, like, the right way to eat or the right way to sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
Or manage your health.
The shoulds, all the shoulds.
All the shoulds. Another key takeaway, I think, is the power of challenging assumptions.
Right.
You know, Jaime found success by stepping outside of conventional thinking and exploring alternative approaches that might seem
counterintuitive.
Counterintuitive at first glance. So it's a reminder that sometimes the answers we're looking for lie outside of the mainstream.
Absolutely. It's about being open to new ideas and possibilities and not being afraid to try something different.
And that's a message that resonates, like, far beyond just the realm of autism and sleep.
It does.
It's about empowering ourselves to be curious, to question, and to advocate for our own well-being, even when it means going against the grain.
Right.
And I think another crucial takeaway is the importance of viewing the autistic experience through this lens of design, not disorder.
Love it.
Instead of trying to fix something that isn't broken.
Right.
We need to focus on understanding and supporting the unique ways that autistic individuals experience the world.
Yeah, how can we support you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that leads us to, like, another critical question that Jaime's story raises. How can we create a healthcare system
Ooh, big question.
that truly embraces neurodiversity and supports artistic individuals in finding their own paths to wellness?
That's a great question. I hope we can delve into that a little bit further as we continue.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Because this is just the beginning of our exploration.
Yes.
And there's so much more to unpack. We'll be right back after a quick break to delve deeper into the science.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty
behind some of these discoveries.
Yeah. So as we delve deeper into the science behind Jaime's discoveries, let's unpack this connection between histamine intolerance, diet, and sleep a little further.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty. I'm particularly interested in histamine intolerance Could you explain the mechanism behind it and why it seems to have such a significant impact on Jaime's overall well-being?
Sure. So histamine, as we touched upon earlier, is a chemical produced in our bodies that plays a variety of roles from regulating our immune response to aiding digestion.
Mm-hmm.
However, the enzyme responsible for breaking down histamine diamine oxidase, or DAO for short,
Okay.
can be deficient in some individuals.
So if there isn't enough DAO, histamine starts to build up,
Right.
and that's when the problems arise.
Exactly. Imagine a bathtub with the faucet running,
Okay.
but a clogged drain. Eventually, the tub overflows.
Yeah.
That's similar to what happens in the body with histamine intolerance.
Okay.
This overabundance of histamine can trigger a whole cascade of symptoms,
Yeah.
ranging from headaches and skin rashes to gastrointestinal distress and even anxiety.
And that aligns perfectly with what Jaime describes in the essay, experiencing both gastrointestinal problems and anxiety. It all seems so interconnected.
It is all connected.
But how does diet fit into all of this?
Well, certain foods are either rich in histamine or can trigger the release of histamine in the body.
Okay.
So for someone with histamine intolerance, these foods can really exacerbate their symptoms.
So it's like a double whammy. Consuming high histamine foods while also lacking the ability to break them down efficiently.
Exactly.
Could you give us some examples of these high histamine culprits? Maybe something that would surprise our listeners?
Yeah, some might be obvious, like aged cheeses, fermented foods like sauerkraut and yogurt and cured meats.
Yeah, those make sense.
But some are less intuitive, like spinach tomatoes, even certain types of fish.
Wow.
It really highlights the importance of individualized care, as histamine intolerance can vary widely from person to person.
No wonder Jaime went through so many different dietary approaches before finding what worked for them.
It's a process.
And let's not forget the impact of stress.
Right.
Stress can also trigger histamine release, further complicating the picture.
Absolutely. It's all connected.
So this brings us back to the importance of not just addressing diet, but also finding ways to manage stress and support the body's overall ability to cope.
Right.
And this is where Jaime's experience with intermittent fasting becomes particularly interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about what they ate, but when they ate.
The timing.
Could you elaborate on the potential benefits of intermittent fasting beyond just weight loss?
Sure. Intermittent fasting has gained a lot of attention in recent years, and for good reason.
Yeah, it's really popular.
Studies suggest that it can help improve insulin sensitivity,
Okay.
which is crucial for regulating blood sugar levels and preventing those energy crashes.
Yeah.
It's also been shown to reduce inflammation,
Okay.
potentially alleviating some of the discomfort associated with histamine intolerance.
It's amazing how something as simple as changing the timing of your meals can have such a profound impact on your physiology.
It is. And historically speaking, humans haven't always had constant access to food.
Right?
Intermittent fasting, in a way, brings us back to a more ancestral eating pattern.
So a return to our evolutionary roots might hold some keys to better health.
Perhaps.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
But let's not lose sight of the other fascinating element of Jaime's journey, liminal dreaming.
Oh, yes.
Could we dive into the potential of this practice a little deeper, especially its connection to managing night terrors?
Of course. Liminal dreaming, as we discussed, involves consciously navigating those transitional states between wakefulness and sleep. Jaime mentioned drawing inspiration from experts like Jason Lube, whose work explores the intersection of magic, consciousness, and technology.
Okay, I'm curious, how does magic fit into all of this? It seems like a pretty big leap from diet and sleep to the realm of magic and consciousness exploration.
It might seem like a leap.
Yeah.
But think of it this way. Magic, in its essence, is about understanding and harnessing the power of the mind.
Okay.
And liminal dreaming taps into that same potential.
Yeah.
Allowing us to access a deeper level of awareness and work with our subconscious thoughts and feelings in a more intentional way.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about harnessing the power of our own minds to create positive change.
Exactly.
But what does that actually look like in practice? What specific techniques did Jaime use to engage with liminal dreaming?
Well, they talk about incorporating visualization,
Okay.
which involves creating vivid mental images to guide the dream experience. This can be particularly helpful for addressing fears and anxieties.
I could see how that could be empowering, especially for someone who struggled with night terrors for so long.
Right.
But are there any risks involved in exploring these liminal states? It sounds like you're venturing into some pretty deep psychological territory.
You're right. It's not something to be taken lightly.
Right.
It's crucial to approach liminal dreaming with respect and caution.
Yeah.
Especially for individuals dealing with mental health challenges.
Okay.
Working with a qualified therapist or guide can be incredibly helpful in navigating these states safely and effectively.
That's reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
It's always best to proceed with guidance and support when exploring new realms of consciousness.
I agree.
And speaking of support, I'm curious how Jaime managed the social aspects of their rather unique lifestyle changes. Their diet, for example, seems like it would present some significant challenges in social settings where food is often so central.
You're absolutely right. Navigating social situations with dietary restrictions can be tricky.
Yeah.
However, Jaime chose to view these situations as opportunities to educate others about their choices.
That's a really proactive approach.
Yeah.
Turning a potential point of discomfort into a chance to connect with others and share knowledge.
Exactly.
Instead of feeling isolated or judged, Jaime reframed the experience as a teaching moment.
Right.
Who knows, maybe those conversations sparked a ripple effect, prompting others to consider their own dietary choices or become more understanding of those with different needs.
That's a great point.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
It is.
And this brings us to another important point that Jaime raises in the essay, the cost-effectiveness of their new lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
They mentioned saving money on clothes due to their weight stabilizing and not needing to buy new sizes as often.
Yeah.
They even attribute their youthful appearance to the higher cholesterol and fat intake.
Wow. Well, those might seem like superficial benefits.
Yeah.
They actually tie back to a deeper sense of well-being, self-acceptance, and, frankly, economic stability.
It really highlights how interconnected all these aspects of our lives truly are.
I agree. It's not just about physical health or sleep quality. It's about the ripple effect that these choices have on our mental, emotional, and even financial well-being.
So what's another crucial insight we can glean from Jaime's experience, something that might spark further exploration for our listeners?
Well, one of the most important takeaways, and perhaps the most challenging, is that true healing often requires us to question the status quo.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into the trap of accepting conventional wisdom without questioning its validity, especially in areas like health and wellness.
That's right. It's about reclaiming our power as individuals, trusting our own intuition, and advocating for our own unique needs, even when it feels difficult or unconventional.
It's about recognizing that there's no single right way, and what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly.
And that's a message that resonates far beyond the realm of autism and sleep. It's applicable to all areas of our lives, from our relationships to our careers to our creative pursuits.
I like that. It's about being open to new possibilities and finding what truly resonates with our individual needs and aspirations.
But before we get too philosophical, I want to circle back to something Jaime mentioned that I found incredibly intriguing.
Okay.
The connection between their high-fat diet and a more youthful appearance. Could you elaborate on that a bit more?
Sure. Jaime attributes their youthful appearance to the higher cholesterol and fat intake in their diet, while conventional wisdom demonizes cholesterol and fat. There's a growing body of research suggesting that these nutrients play crucial roles in various bodily functions, including hormone production and skin health.
So maybe we've been too quick to villainize certain nutrients without fully understanding their complexities?
It's definitely a possibility.
It highlights the importance of listening to our own bodies and finding what works best for us individually, rather than blindly following the latest trends or dietary dogma.
I agree.
This is also fascinating.
It is.
It's really prompting me to rethink my own relationship with food and wellness.
Good.
But I'm also curious about something else Jaime mentioned. The lack of joy from food due to their dietary restrictions.
Right.
How do they cope with that aspect of their lifestyle change?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
Food is so often associated with pleasure and social connection.
Right.
Hyman acknowledged the challenges of finding enjoyment in a restricted diet, particularly in social settings.
Yeah.
But they also found ways to create joy and satisfaction in other areas of their life.
So it's about finding balance and recognizing that fulfillment can come from various sources, not just food.
Exactly. It's about embracing a holistic approach to well-being and finding ways to nourish ourselves on all levels. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
That's a beautiful way to frame it.
Thank you.
And it brings us back to the core message of Jaime's story that true wellness is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
It's about continuous exploration, self-discovery, and finding what truly works for you.
And sometimes that journey leads us to unexpected places, challenging conventional wisdom and revealing hidden truths about ourselves and the world around us.
This has been such an insightful and thought-provoking conversation.
It has.
But before we wrap things up, I want to make sure we leave our listener with something tangible to consider.
Okay.
What's that final thought-provoking question or challenge that you think will stay with them long after this episode ends?
Well, I think the most important question to ask ourselves, regardless of whether we're autistic or not, is this: what assumptions am I holding on to that might be limiting my potential for health and well-being?
Ooh, that's good.
It's a big one.
Yeah. It challenges us to really step back and examine our own beliefs and behaviors, to question the why behind our choices, and to consider the possibility that there might be alternative paths to explore.
Exactly.
And I think another crucial question to consider is, how can we create a more inclusive and supportive world for neurodivergent individuals?
Right.
One that embraces their unique strengths and challenges them to thrive on their own terms.
Absolutely. Those are both powerful questions that I hope will spark further reflection and action for our listeners.
And remember, this is just the beginning of the exploration.
Right.
We encourage everyone to dive deeper into the resources mentioned in Hein's essay, like Jason Liu's work on magic and consciousness.
Yeah, great resources.
You never know what fascinating insights you might uncover.
That's right.
And as always, we encourage you to continue the conversation with us on social media.
Yes, please.
We'd love to hear your thoughts and insights on this incredibly important topic. As we're wrapping up this deep dive into autism and sleep, I'm struck by how much ground we've covered. From histamine intolerance to liminal dreaming, Jaime's story has really taken us on a journey.
It really has. And one of the most powerful themes I think that's been woven through this whole conversation is the importance of individual needs.
Yeah, that's a key theme that just keeps emerging, right? What works for one person might not work for another, and that's especially true when we're talking about autism.
Absolutely.
Where the spectrum of experiences is just so vast.
Exactly. And Jaime's journey really illustrates that beautifully. They didn't find success by following a conventional path. They had to carve their own way, experimenting, listening to their body's signals to figure out what worked for them.
And that's a message that resonates, I think, far beyond the autistic community.
Absolutely. In a world that's so quick to offer quick fixes and one-size-fits-all solutions, Jaime's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes true healing requires a much deeper level of self-awareness and a willingness to step outside those conventional boundaries.
It's about recognizing that we're all unique individuals with unique needs.
Yeah.
And that there's no shame in seeking out alternative approaches that might better support those needs.
I love that.
And it's also about embracing the idea that true well-being is an ongoing journey.
It is.
Not a destination.
A process.
Yeah, it's about constantly learning and adapting and refining our approach as we gain new insights and experiences.
Yeah, it's a lifelong thing.
This whole conversation has really made me think about the concept of, expert knowledge.
Yeah.
We often place so much trust in experts,
right?
Whether they're doctors, scientists, even podcast hosts like us.
Oh, yeah.
But Jaime's story shows us that sometimes the most profound expertise actually comes from within.
It does. It's that inner knowing.
Yeah.
That inner wisdom.
It's so true.
Yeah. So we need to balance respecting expert knowledge with also trusting our own inner wisdom.
Right.
And the signals that our bodies are giving us.
It's about being active participants in our own well-being rather than just passive recipients of information or treatments.
Yeah, and that can be incredibly empowering.
It is.
Realizing that we have the agency to actually shape our own health and well-being, even when it means challenging conventional wisdom or seeking out alternative approaches.
It's about taking ownership of our own journey and finding what truly resonates with our needs and our aspirations.
Absolutely.
Speaking of journeys, one thing that struck me about Jaime's experience is the way they turned potential challenges into these opportunities for growth and connection.
I love that about the story.
You're referring to how they navigated the social aspects of their dietary restrictions.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of viewing their limited food choices as a burden, they use those situations to educate others and spark conversations about health and well-being.
I love that. What a great approach.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's turning a potential point of isolation into a catalyst for connection and learning.
And who knows, maybe those conversations even inspired some people to reevaluate their own relationship with food or to be more understanding of those with different needs and different choices.
Right.
Yeah. It's a beautiful reminder that even when we feel different, our experiences can actually be valuable teaching moments for others.
So true.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive has just been an amazing exploration of how interconnected all of these elements of well-being are, physical, mental, even social well-being.
Absolutely. We've explored the impact of diet and lifestyle on sleep. We've delved into the world of liminal dreaming, even touched upon those, financial and social implications of making unconventional choices.
It really has been like a whirlwind of information and insights.
It has.
But if we wrap things up, I want to bring it back to the heart of this deep dive.
Okay.
And that's the relationship between autism and sleep.
Right.
What are some final takeaways or reflections you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that there is no single answer or solution when it comes to addressing sleep challenges in autistic individuals.
Right.
It's about recognizing the diversity of experiences within the autism spectrum and really honoring each person's unique needs and sensitivities.
And it's about being willing to explore a wide range of approaches.
Right.
From dietary changes and lifestyle adjustments to therapeutic techniques like liminal dreaming, always with the guidance and support, of course, of qualified professionals.
Of course, always.
And I think another crucial takeaway is the importance of creating a more inclusive and understanding world for neurodivergent individuals. A world that recognizes and values their unique strengths and challenges them to thrive on their own terms.
That's beautifully said.
So as we conclude this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
What small step can you take today to create a more inclusive and supportive environment for neurodivergent individuals in your own life?
Love that.
Whether it's educating yourself about neurodiversity, challenging your own assumptions, or simply lending a listening ear to someone who's different from you. Every action, no matter how small, can make a difference.
It really can.
And remember, this is just the beginning of the exploration.
Right.
We encourage you to continue learning, asking questions, and advocating for a world that embraces neurodiversity and all its beautiful forms.
Beautifully said. I agree.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into this fascinating and complex world of autism and sleep.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are inspired to continue the conversation. Until next time, happy diving.